This is our Duke variety. This has been a staple in the Oregon market for a very long time. They produce in the early summer time frame between June 15th to July 15th. Around that window is when the Dukes come on. They are a staple to Pacific Northwest.
Do you know the ones you sold last year, what they were?
Yeah, so that we sold some Dukes last year and we sold some Liberties last year. Yeah, so we sold. So yeah, we got some Dukes out to folks I know, and we did get some Liberties. And so when we come to a blueberry plant, these two got planted a little closer together. We try to do 3-foot centers like this one here, just because of the way the fence post was. We moved it. We moved the plant. We try to assess two main things on when we step up to a plant: is how healthy does a plant look. And by that I mean how many of the red wood stalks are. That is what we call new wood. It's soft tissue. This is new within the last year or two. It's still soft. It's still brittle. I can scar it easier. Where we have the branches here down below, that's what we call our hardwood. That's our oldest stalks. Those are the ones that have been here, been holding this plant up for many years. We try to take out, based if it looks healthy, which this plant does look healthy, it has a lot of new red wood, we try to take out one of our oldest stalks every single year is what we try to do to make that plant. The root system, as you can see, there's been some big cuts down below here. What we try to do is have the root system be the staple of the plant. It's been there 15 years, as long as these have been in the ground, but we try to rejuvenate the plant to be a new plant every 5 to 6 years. By that meaning, this has only been growing for about six years, and we're going to probably take it out this year. And these are coming up new, and they're the new life. Sometimes it works that way. Sometimes it doesn't. We put it in the cropping system because we're trying to create consistency across our whole field. When it comes to residential, we don't remember every plant because we're not tagging every plant. Yeah, in the residential world, you guys are people are much more in tune with even watching that plant because they're seeing it every day. So we have to try to uniformly produce these. And so if we don't see this as healthy, we end up actually walking a few cuts up top, thin it, and then walk away and try to make sure that this thing is looking healthier next year. And we try not to over prune. And then the second thing that we look at is sunlight and visibility inside the plant. This is getting a little crowded to the inside of the plant, and that will produce less sunlight down here, which then will produce no green tissue, no green leaves, and those limbs will become virtually useless. They're not gonna have anything to grow off of. For an example, if we pruned this guy off, there really isn't any, and I'll let you pass it around, there really isn't any growth gonna come other than this branch and these branches up top, which will produce some fruiting buds. The amount of fruiting buds that we have on a plant, we can manipulate how many. You can see there really isn't any life on this side of the plant, but there is on that side. You can manipulate how big of a berry is being produced this coming year by how much you prune off of the plant. If you over prune it, you're going to have some pretty big berries. You're also going to have high susceptibility to softer berries because sometimes these plants can't handle a quarter size berry. Because you're going to have to pick them really quick. That and how many laterals you have. So, for instance, this last year, we try to say there's anywhere between 5 to 10 lateral shoots per one branch. And if you get over 10, you're going to start having smaller sizes in your. So if you're I will, that one's not a good example. Let me prune this guy off. I wouldn't normally do this as like a, this is a good one, but I wanted to hold it up to show. This has 1 fruiting lateral, 2, 3 with several on here, 4, I guess this would be 5 with several, and then 6. This is a little too much for our commercial side. We like that this, I mean, it looks sparse, but I would take these lower ones off with my hand and not prune them and leave it the way it is. You can prune the smaller ones with your hands. You don't have to sit there and, you know, we're not trimming a beard, you know, you don't have to, this will work. But having these laterals will then produce much bigger berries on these upper laterals than if I would have left these lower ones. Now again, I would never have cut that off of that plant, so this would have been here. This isn't one to cut. So yeah. Exactly. yeah. 5th row in, don't, yeah. So the first thing I like to do is cut one big branch out. Then the second thing is then check sunlight protection. Once you kind of check all these crazies that are coming back towards the middle of the plant, you cut those out. Then you can look at potentially downsizing your laterals. You don't do the laterals or thinning the plant first, because then it's kind of the chicken and the egg. You're doing it way before the big cuts are always the first thing to do. Because at the time when you take out the big cut and you thin out and you do a little bit of cosmetic work in the center, you may not need to thin it out because you've already done enough. That 5 to 10 lateral shoots per branch is not a hard, fast rule. That's not a you have to count every single branch. We like to only spend 1 to 2 minutes per plant and move on. We understand that when it's in your backyard, you're going to spend a little bit longer than 1 to 2 minutes. But
and you can sing to them if you want.
But the
Blueberries. Did you only do 1 big cut per bush then?
on our side, yeah, 1 big cut per bush. Yep.
How do you decide which big? Maybe you're going to say this.
Yeah, I'll show you. It's basically you look for the most unhealthy big one. That is the oldest. You're just looking for the oldest wood. But when I say that 5 to 10 rule is not a hard, fast rule, you're just looking to average that across the whole. If you have a really healthy branch that has 15 of them, don't thin that one out. But if you have one that's maybe a little unhealthier, you could put 4 on there, and it's all about the root system being able to hold. So, for instance, I've been eyeing this, and it's this branch here really does not have a lot of life in it. It has one good stalk coming up the middle, and that's where if we started thinning it out and we didn't realize that this part was part of that big cut, we would probably shoot ourselves in the foot as far as taking out too much wood. So we'll take that one out first, and then we'll start thinning, because this is actually going to thin out the plant a lot more than initially the first analysis from me.
We save the granddaughters.
And when you're making cuts, one of the big things with making cuts is not doing any horizontal cuts. Horizontal cuts allow water to sit on the fresh cut, and that's how disease is transferred. Disease is transferred very easily through pruners. If I cut a diseased plant and I'm down 4 more plants, and a little bit of the spore goes on there, that's one way. Also water dripping down and penetrating, because you're opening up the plant into, so it's a wound. So always as steep as your pruners will allow them. Typically 45-degree angles on Felcos is about all that they want. You can't, 89 degrees or 90 degrees, you start tearing. And on a piece of wood and it tears like that, you didn't just make an incision here, you also make an incision on the back too. So it creates a bigger susceptibility for the wound. So as clean of cuts as possible is the attitude. Don't lose sleep over having your pruners do what they just did in jam. It's just a good practice to have that we're not spreading unwanted disease.
It's only a bush.
That being said, do you clean your pruners?
So we do soak them in water with some Clorox and stuff. That is a good recommendation, that if you're going between varietals, say you're pruning your rhododendrons or your flowers, before you go, anytime you go between any varietal or cropping system in your garden, it's good to wash your pruners up, just because one plant may have a disease that you definitely don't want on the other one. It's a very good practice to have. But we always carry with our crew, we always carry big loppers. We carry hand pruners. I have big hands, and I can take those big guys out with my hands. But most people, it's best if we just carry loppers so that we can take out the big cuts.
Generally, we'll run a guy ahead taking the big cuts, and then our crew comes back and does the finish off because he knows what he's doing.
Oops. All right.
Is there a brand of shears that you recommend?
Yeah, so we commercially, Felcos are some of the best, standing the test of time. Sometimes Kirkland has a special. Costco has a special on a Kirkland brand. These blades are actually Kirkland. They're made by Felco, but they're the classic Kirkland. And then they do have a kit where you can file them. We do file them in the mornings, and just sharpen them. Big loppers, Felco does an okay job. Baco is who we use for them, but they're we're making several thousand cuts a day, so I mean we're way harder on these than really. They're designed really for big commercial cuts. There's orchard companies called OVS down in McMinnville. They sell all of these. I don't know if the garden centers sell them, but we get all of ours down at a company called OVS.
When you do like the big cut, how much do you want to leave lower? Do you want to get as low as you can, 6 inches?
As low as you can go.
Okay.
Yeah, as low as you can go. At the previous class, we had a gentleman ask us. We also have this problem. It's called mummyberry. It's a berry that has basically it just mummifies itself. It's a fungal disease that grows out of the old berries that fell from the year prior, and they sit in the mulch, and then they grow spores and then shoot the spores out. And the best mechanical way to ever eradicate that is putting mulch on it every year. So I wanted to make sure I made that note when we were talking about mulch. You just cover them up with 4 to 6 inches, and their spores don't have enough energy to push through them, and then you eliminate it.
And then your clip that you have left, if you're going as low as you can you mulch over that with you?
Mm. Yeah, you can be just fine with that. Yeah, I'd probably go a little lower too. But with these, there are these lower branches that are here. These will not be any sort of viability to the fruit, these lower half. They will fruit, but I mean, who really wants to get down on their knees and pick berries? Not the best picking experience. It makes the most sense. Every year they will throw new shoots, and those new shoots that come up are going to produce higher branches, like these. This one came up from within the last year. We then go through in this time frame when we're pruning, to take anything that was like a late starter, the late bloomers. We just prune them down, and next year we'll have a new flush. So I cut these, I cut that big cut out and it opened up a lot of the plant, but there's these little ones that are going towards the center of the plant. And those are the ones that I'm going after right now, to try to open up the center, to open up a channel of air, or sunlight, I mean. Sometimes in order to see, you got to move a plant ahead just to try, but as far as this goes, this one really didn't have, this one had a little bit of life, but it was on the older edge and it didn't have a lot of fruiting wood. And then as you come out a little bit more, this whole thing is not very great. Fruiting wood is your redwood.
Your younger wood will fruit more.
If I wouldn't have pruned that one, but I'm showing you. Those are your fruit.
No, perfect.
These, the swellers, those are the fruit. The leaves are back here.
So,
This leaf bud.
so even though that's red, I mean, you could take this off, or would you?
Yeah, so the recommendation to like take these out, if I make that recommendation even to our workers to say take out any of this dried wood, they're not going to here to take it out. They're going way back here because that's just how human instinct is when you take that out, because we're not making small ancillary cuts. You know, we're not fine pruning this. We're making as big as cuts as we can. So they're going back as far as they can when they see that dried wood, and they end up taking more than they really should be. But that's why I try to avoid saying taking out any of that dried wood, because I mean this is really careful pruning in a plant system where, you know, there's 1,020 trees to the acre, and
But if you have 3 bushes,
it doesn't help. It doesn't help, doesn't hurt. It's a cosmetic thing only in my. But physiology, I haven't ran a study on it, but what I've seen, it doesn't help. It actually hurts our side if we tell them that, because they end up taking more.
yeah.
So my analytical data is don't do it, but that's just because they end up taking more than they should. But when we have left it, I haven't seen any issues.
okay.
But if you don't like looking at it, then do it.
Yeah.
Well, that is a complete personal preference. How tall are you, and how tall are the people that are going to be picking it? Me, I would grow much taller, but I'm by far the tallest one on our farm, even the pickers. So we try to grow them smaller. Now here we are shorter than even our commercial berries are, because we have a lot of kids here that are trying to pick. And we're trying to allow kids to be able to pick and not go on mom or dad's shoulders. And so we're growing them a little bit shorter than we would like.
So the commercial ones are higher.
Commercial ones are higher. And then if we're going to be machine picking them for process with mechanical pickers, they're even much taller and much wider. You can't, in some of our commercial fields, I can't walk down the middle of the row. They're touching my shoulders as how big they are. But that's dependent on the audience in which you are harvesting the berries. If the birds are getting them all, then it doesn't matter if it's tall or not. They'll get it anywhere. So, anyways.
About 75 cents a pound to pick them.
Does anybody have any questions on pruning? Otherwise, we can turn you loose, and and we can walk up and down and answer questions.
And remember, we're going to put your name on the one.
For like a younger bush, would you do anything differently?
Yeah, so on little baby bushes that are either newly planted or just before 3 years old or 4 years old, we pick all the blooms off of those berries for the first 3 years.
Oh, really?
And that's because we want energy into the roots, not into the berries.
Oh, okay.
The first 3 years we're growing bush.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
But we're doing that because we know what the berry tastes like, so we don't need to. We want the income from that, but we're not trying to really get the flavor out of it. We're trying to grow the best berry to be long term because we want these things. It's a
To
30
do
to
that,
40
the
year
roots
investment.
grow bigger out, is that-
Yeah. So the only
Mainly getting the structure of your bush
Okay.
for your 4th year.
So is that true for the ones that were purchased here last year? 'Cause
yeah, my recommendation on anything that was purchased or transplanted is always to pick the blooms. And I say selfishly, leave 5 to 10% of the blooms just so that you can have some fruits for your labor. But the best recommendation is to actually take all the blooms off. But I know human nature wants to eat some of them, so don't do that. But yeah, you're gonna want to try to focus all that energy into it.
Would you prune in those first 3 years?
Yeah, so even in the babies and that, I would just be shaping it. It would just be under the canopy to creating any, call it wild hairs that are kind of not growing in a uniform manner, but nothing, no old wood, no structural, no, it's just kind of a cosmetic prune. You have a question?
When you're looking at things like maples, you try to look at where the branches are kind of crossing and rubbing through. Is that kind of the way that we're picking our things to cut here as well?
It's not a bad strategy to attempt that. Blueberries are kind of wild, and there is some rubbing that ends up happening. They're such a softer wood than a tree is that they don't they will get some callousing on some of the crossing points, but we don't. That's not a focus point that we focus on. But it's not a bad idea to keep an eye on,
Free up there.
just because if you're crossing, that means that you're probably crossing sunlight paths too, and that's one of the main tactics of why we are pruning, to open up those sunlight channels. So inherently we do get some of it. We don't get it all, but that's a benefit from our reason of pruning, but it's not the main reason why we prune. The moss is
Blueberry plants.
just it just shows that it's an old branch. It doesn't hurt it. The moss is not a detrimental thing. It probably is a really good eye test of an indication of which one's the oldest branch that has moss on it. If I'm looking at this branch, that one that has the most moss on it on this branch is the one I would be taking out. And it's the moss draws my eyes to it, but it also structurally looks at it. I got some of the oldest wood sitting next to it. So we try not to have moss growing because moss starts growing on blueberry plants after that year 5 to 7 range. And we're trying to convert our plants, like I said, rejuvenate them every 5 to 7 years. But it doesn't. Of course, it's going to take some nutrients. It is surviving on the plant, but it's not a parasite. It's not killing the plant from the inside out.
I have a question. So, like, I have 3 blueberries at home,
Mhm.
and they were there when we moved in. Is there a way to tell what kind of variety they are, or not really?
There is a way to test. You can, I think the lab at OSU could do a genome test on it, and they could do it. There is no good for sure way of doing an eye test on
I
it.
figured, okay.
Yeah.
Just wondering.
It is very difficult because of how many blueberry varieties there are in the market and how many are unpatented. So we all, in the commercial side, are growing predominantly patented varieties that are the newest releases that the OSU, Michigan State, or a marketer has come out with, because those are the newest and best varieties for consumers. By the time they make the garden centers, they are off patent for several years, and they are there's no new OSU variety that's hitting Home Depot first. They're going to the growers first, and then once they get off patent, then the nurseries are selling to the garden center. And it's because we're paying royalties. I mean, we're paying for the research, our commission dollars. There's everything going towards that. But so blueberries have been grown for 70 or 80 years in the nursery spectrum too. So there could be a lot. Yeah, it's really hard to tell exactly what variety. The best way to describe blueberry plants in general is when do they harvest? Are they early season, mid season, or late season? And that can narrow down the varietal possibilities, but you would never be able to pinpoint it. So when we plant on our commercial side, we try to hit our windows. So we say there's 3 windows in the season. There's an early window, a mid window, and a late window, and we try to pick varieties that'll bridge those gaps.
So you got 2 irrigation systems going here.
Yeah, there's the reason that we have 2 drips on both sides of the plant is just because we got roots on both sides, and then we have overhead irrigation on top.
Yeah.
Overhead irrigation was what we did first since the 90s. But the main reason we did it was for cooling. So when you get above 85 degrees, we throw the overhead up, and that drops the temperature. On a 95-degree day, it could be 80 to 85 degrees in the field. That is a significant difference in wilting and of sunburn on the blueberry.
We're changing some of our